Welcome to Infidelity Diaries. Explore the secrets and stories of infidelity with us. My name is Lillian Hunt. At first glance, my life might seem perfect. I'm a successful businesswoman, a happy wife, and mother. But not everything is as simple as it seems. Someone has entered my life, turning everything upside down and making me rethink my reality. How did I end up in the arms of a young intern at my company? This is a story about how passion and hidden desires can disrupt the familiar order of life. Immerse yourself in my world, where every decision leads to unexpected consequences. They say that life at the peak of success is a constant balancing act. Every morning, I wake up in my spacious home on the outskirts of Boston, make breakfast for my husband Jack and our daughter Emma, and then head to the office, where another busy day awaits me. My company develops software, and over 10 years, I have turned it into one of the industry leaders. This achievement cost me many sleepless nights and sacrificed weekends, but I am proud of what I've accomplished. However, lately, I have been feeling different. Jack has always been there, supporting me in everything, but it seemed like an invisible wall had risen between us. Our conversations became shorter, kisses less passionate, and nights more solitary. I couldn't understand what had happened. Perhaps routine had consumed us, or maybe I had changed. I tried not to think about it, focusing on work. But one day, everything changed. That day, a new intern joined our office. His name was Oliver. Tall, athletic, with a boyish smile and infectious laughter. He was young, barely 22, but there was a spark in his eyes that I hadn't seen in others for a long time. Oliver was assigned to my department, and I immediately noticed his potential. He was diligent, curious, and always ready to help. Soon, he became an indispensable member of our team. At first, I tried to keep my distance. He was too young, too handsome. But as we worked together, something more than just a professional relationship developed between us. We often stayed late in the office, discussing projects, sharing ideas. Every look, every touch from him electrified the air around us. One evening, when everyone else had already left the office, I invited Oliver to dinner to discuss an important project. We sat in a cozy restaurant, laughing and chatting like old friends. I felt myself starting to lose control. At some point, he took my hand and looked into my eyes. In that moment, the whole world around us disappeared. "Lillian," he said quietly, "you know I will always be there if you need help." I felt my heart skip a beat. His words were simple, but there was something more behind them. I could no longer deny what I felt. In that moment, I realized I was on the brink of something unknown that could change my entire life. We left the restaurant, and Oliver offered to walk me to my car. The night was warm, the air filled with the scent of blooming trees. We walked in silence, each lost in our thoughts. When we reached my car, he stopped and turned to me. "Lillian," he began, but I didn't let him finish. I stepped closer and kissed him. His lips were soft, with a tangy taste, like wine. That kiss awakened forgotten feelings in me, making my blood boil. I pulled away, trying to understand what had just happened. Oliver looked at me with surprise and joy. "You don't need to apologize," he whispered, pulling me closer. We stood there, under the stars, kissing like teenage lovers. In that moment, I knew there was no turning back. My life had changed forever. Several days had passed since that evening when I first kissed Oliver. Each morning, I woke up with a mix of guilt and excitement, but as soon as I saw him in the office, all doubts vanished. His smile was like a remedy for all my worries, and I eagerly anticipated our meetings. One evening, after a long workday, Oliver invited me to take a walk through the city. We went to a park near the office, where the quiet paths and evening lights created an atmosphere of seclusion. We talked about everything under the sun, laughed, and enjoyed each other's company. At one point, he stopped and took my hand. "Lillian, you do realize this isn't just a coincidence, right?" he asked. his voice full of seriousness. I nodded, feeling his touch make my heart race faster. I know, Oliver, but I have a family, and I can't just abandon everything. He looked into my eyes, his gaze filled with determination. I'm not asking you to abandon everything. I just want to be with you, even if it's just for a while. We stood there under the trees, and I realized I could no longer deny my feelings. I stepped closer and kissed him again. His arms wrapped around me, and I felt safe despite the chaos unfolding in my life. The next day at the office, we tried to behave as usual, but every glance, every touch betrayed our feelings. We continued working together on projects, finding new excuses to stay late. In those moments, the office seemed like a different world, where only the two of us existed. One evening, after staying late again, Oliver suggested we go to his place. I knew it was risky, but I couldn't resist. His apartment was cozy and bright, with a view of the city lights. We sat on the couch, drinking wine and talking. At some point, he moved closer, and I felt his lips touch my neck. Lillian, you are the most amazing woman I have ever met, he whispered. I closed my eyes, savoring his touch. His hands slid down my back, igniting excitement and passion. I turned to him and kissed him, diving headfirst into the moment. We kissed for a long time, forgetting about everything else. In that moment, I realized I couldn't live without him anymore. We spent the night together, and every touch, every kiss was filled with passion and tenderness. In the morning, I woke up in his arms, feeling like I had found something I had been missing for a long time. But along with that came a sense of guilt. I knew I was betraying Jack, and it tore me apart. Back home, I tried to act as usual, but Jack noticed the change. He came up to me and hugged me, his voice full of concern. Lillian, you look tired. Maybe you need to rest a bit. I nodded, trying to hide my tears. He had always been so attentive and caring, and it only intensified my guilt. I knew I had to make a choice, but I couldn't decide what was right, keeping my family or following my feelings. At work, my relationship with Oliver became increasingly strained. We both understood we were living on the edge, but we couldn't stop. Every day was filled with passion and the fear of being discovered. We met in secret, exchanged passionate kisses in hidden corners of the office, and every touch felt like forbidden fruit. One evening, when we were alone in the office again, Oliver came up to me and said, Lillian, I can't do this anymore. We need to decide what we're going to do next. His words made me think. I knew this couldn't go on, but I didn't know what to do. I loved Oliver, but I also didn't want to lose my family. Ahead of me lay a difficult choice that would change my life forever. Oliver stood before me, his face a mix of determination and sadness. I wanted to say something comforting, but the words stuck in my throat. Suddenly, I wanted to forget all our problems, if only for a short while. I stood up and walked over to him, taking his hands in mine. Let's forget about everything for at least an hour, I whispered. Come with me. He nodded, and I led him to my office. We entered, and I closed the door behind us, feeling the tension in the air become almost palpable. I turned to him and saw the passion and tenderness in his eyes. We stood there for a few seconds, not taking our eyes off each other. I moved closer and placed my hands on his shoulders. His breathing quickened, and I felt his hands wrap around my waist. Our lips met in a passionate kiss that erased all my thoughts and doubts. His touch was gentle, but filled with strength and desire. We kissed, forgetting everything else in the world, our bodies merging into one. I felt him lift me onto the desk, his hands sliding under my shirt, sending waves of excitement through me. I responded in kind, my hands exploring his body, savoring every curve. Oliver pulled back for a moment, his eyes sparkling with fire. Lillian, you have no idea how much I love you, he whispered. I smiled and pulled him closer, our bodies once again united in a passionate kiss. We moved in sync with each other, each moment filled with passion and tenderness. I felt all my feelings and desires finding an outlet, and it was both liberating and frightening. We spent several hours together, forgetting everything else. Each of his touches was like fire, awakening my hidden desires. We kissed, laughed, and enjoyed each other's company. It was a moment of pure happiness, without thoughts of consequences and the future. After it was over, we lay on the floor of my office, holding each other and talking quietly. I felt his breath calming me, and for the first time in a long while, I felt truly alive. "Lillian, whatever happens, I'll always be here," he said, his voice full of confidence. I nodded, understanding that our relationship could no longer be just a secret affair. I knew there were many difficulties ahead, but at that moment, I was ready for them. We got dressed and tidied ourselves up, preparing to return to our normal lives. Oliver came up to me and kissed me goodbye. "See you tomorrow," he said quietly, leaving the office. I was left alone, lost in my thoughts. I realized I could no longer live in lies and doubts. My feelings for Oliver were real, and I had to decide what to do next. Ahead of me lay a difficult choice that would change my life forever. After our passionate encounter in my office, I couldn't stop thinking about Oliver. Each kiss, each touch left an indelible mark on my heart. Simultaneously, I felt the heavy weight of guilt for deceiving Jack and our daughter Emma. The next morning, I woke up feeling confused and exhausted. Jack had already left for work, leaving a note on the table wishing me a good day and reminding me of our family dinner that evening. Reading it, I felt a pang of guilt. He was so caring and loving, and I knew I was betraying his trust. Throughout the day, I couldn't concentrate on work. My thoughts kept drifting back to Oliver and our time together. I knew I had to make a decision that would change our lives forever. I had two options: continue living a lie, or follow my feelings and be honest with myself and those around me. That evening, I stayed alone in my office, lost in my thoughts. I pondered what it meant to be truly happy and realized I couldn't live a double life any longer. I loved Oliver, and these feelings were real and strong, but I also didn't want to hurt my family. Finally, after much contemplation, I made a decision. I had to be honest with myself and follow my heart. I knew it wouldn't be easy, and that difficult conversations, and possibly the destruction of my family, lay ahead. But I couldn't continue living a lie, deceiving both myself and Jack. The next day, I called Oliver and asked him to meet me. We chose a cozy cafe on the outskirts of the city where we could talk privately. When I arrived, he was already waiting at a table, his face a mix of hope and anxiety. "Lillian, what's wrong?" he asked as I sat down across from him. I took his hand, feeling the warmth of his skin. "Oliver, I've thought long and hard, and I can't live a lie any longer. I've decided to be honest with myself and with everyone. I want to be with you." His eyes lit up with joy, but he remained serious. "Lillian, are you sure? This is a tough decision, and the consequences will be significant." I nodded, feeling my heart beat faster. "I know, Oliver, but I can't deny my feelings any longer. I love you, and I'm ready to face whatever comes next." He leaned in and kissed me, his lips soft and warm. In that moment, I knew I had made the right choice. We sat there, holding each other's hands, savoring the moment. Returning home, I knew difficult conversations with Jack and Emma awaited me. I had to explain everything to them and try to minimize the pain I would cause. It wasn't easy, but I felt I was doing the right thing. The next day, I gathered all my courage and talked to Jack. We sat in the living room, and I told him everything that had happened. His face showed shock and pain, and I felt my heart ache. "Lillian, I always thought we were happy. How could you do this?" His voice trembled with emotion. I lowered my eyes, feeling tears on my cheeks. "Jack, I never meant to hurt you. I just got lost and found what I was looking for in someone else. I'm so sorry. He stood up and walked to the window, his shoulders shaking. I knew this would be hard for both of us, but I had to be honest. In the following weeks, our lives changed. Jack and I decided to separate to give each other a chance at new happiness. I began dating Oliver openly, and although it was challenging, I felt free and happy. Each day was filled with new challenges and joys. Oliver and I built our relationship anew, step by step. I knew difficulties lay ahead, but now I was ready for them. The divorce process turned out to be much more complicated than I could have ever imagined. Every morning, I woke up with a heavy heart, knowing that difficult conversations and legal procedures awaited me. Jack and I had agreed to part amicably for the sake of our daughter Emma, but that didn't make the situation any less painful. We started by discussing the details of the divorce with our lawyers. The meetings were tense, filled with emotions and disagreements. We talked about dividing assets, custody of Emma, and financial obligations. Jack was deeply hurt by my betrayal, but he understood that we had to act in Emma's best interests. Each meeting reminded me of the many years we had spent together, all our dreams and plans. But I knew I couldn't continue living a lie. Oliver was my new reality, and I had to be honest with myself and with Jack. One of the most challenging moments was talking to Emma. She was still too young to understand all the complexities, but old enough to sense the tension between us. We sat down together, and I tried to explain what was happening. Emma, sweetie, I began, trying to keep my voice calm. Daddy and I have decided that it's better for us to live separately. This doesn't mean we love you any less. We will always be there for you. Her eyes filled with tears, and she hugged me, her small arms wrapping around my neck. Mommy, I don't want you and Daddy to separate. Her voice trembled. I held her close, feeling my heart break. I know, sweetheart, but sometimes adults have to make difficult decisions. We will still love you very much and take care of you. These words didn't fully comfort her, but I hoped that with time, she would understand and accept our situation. The divorce process dragged on for several months, but finally, all the papers were signed, and we could start a new chapter in our lives. Jack and I agreed on joint custody of Emma, so she could spend time with both of us. During all this, my relationship with Oliver continued to grow. He was there for me, supporting me through all the hardships and emotional turmoil. We spent a lot of time together, and I began to feel that our bond was becoming stronger. One evening, after the divorce was finally settled, Oliver invited me to dinner. We went to our favorite restaurant, where it all began. At a table with a view of the city lights, he took my hand and looked into my eyes. Lillian, I know the past few months have been very tough for you. I'm proud of how you've handled everything, and I want you to know that I'll always be here for you, no matter what. His words filled me with warmth and confidence. I felt that together we could overcome any difficulties. After dinner, we walked along the waterfront, holding hands. The night was clear, stars twinkled in the sky, and the air was filled with the scent of flowers. We stopped by the water, and Oliver hugged me, his arms warm and strong. Lillian, I know there will be many challenges ahead, but I believe we can overcome anything together. You are my destiny. I looked at him, feeling tears of joy and relief fill my eyes. We kissed, and that kiss was filled with love and hope for the future. I knew I had made the right choice, and that new, happy times awaited us. Soon after the divorce, I started building a new life. I moved into a small, cozy apartment in the city center, closer to the office. It was a new phase in my life, and I wanted to start it with a clean slate. Oliver and I spent a lot of time together, exploring the city, going to exhibitions, movies, and simply enjoying each other's company. One day, we decided to spend the weekend out of town, away from the hustle and bustle. We rented a cabin by a lake, surrounded by forest and tranquility. Those 2 days were a revelation for both of us. We walked through the woods, swam in the lake, and enjoyed the solitude. It was a time when we could be completely ourselves, without masks or pretense. In the evening, sitting by the fire, Oliver took my hand and looked at me with love. Lillian, this weekend has shown me how much I love you. I want us to keep building our life together, no matter the difficulties. I felt my heart fill with happiness and gratitude. I knew that many challenges lay ahead, but with Oliver, I was ready for anything. We kissed under the starry sky, and I realized I had finally found my true happiness. My story is one of love, passion, and difficult choices. I made a mistake by cheating on my husband and jeopardizing our family. My daughter Emma now grows up in a fractured family, and that will always weigh on my conscience. However, living with someone you no longer love is also not a solution. It brings just as much pain and suffering to you and your loved ones. It is important to be honest with yourself and those around you, seeking solutions to problems rather than running away from them. I hope my story serves as a lesson for those who find themselves in a similar situation. Be honest with yourself, follow your feelings, but always remember the consequences of your actions. Life is full of tough choices, and sometimes the right path is the hardest one. But ultimately, sincerity and honesty are the keys to true happiness. Remember, though, that this was my choice. Each person is unique and must feel in their heart what is best for them. Don't blindly follow others' decisions. Listen to yourself and find your own path.